Hello and welcome back to another episode of Inside the Asperger Studios. Are you somebody who enjoys artificial intelligence and wants to join a community of like-minded people? Well, my next guest started just that, in a community of like-minded people who like artificial intelligence. He's also autistic with ADHD as well. So sit back, relax, and grab your favorite beverage, and I'll see you on the other side. See you there.
I wanna believe in the truth, but only see what I'm shown. Got the freedom to choose, but can't decide on my own. Follow what the group is
Hello and welcome back to another episode of Inside the Asperger Studios. Today I'm joined with Derek. Welcome to the show, Derek.
Thank you, Reed. It's a pleasure to be here.
So why don't we start off with tell me a little bit about yourself.
A little bit about myself. Gosh, where does that story begin, Reed? I background is I was not diagnosed with Asperger's until I was age 50. I'm 50, I think 58 next month, and so it explained a lot of things to me. Once I got a diagnosis, it was Asperger's and also diagnosed ADHD
Mm.
and dyslexia. So I cried for about 2 weeks, Reed. And then after that 2 weeks, I thought, well, now I have a reason for things. I'm not a horrible person. I just need to come at life at an informed angle. So I embraced my diversity at that point, neurodiversity, and welcomed it. And I talked about it, where and when I made disclosures to the people I work with. So what started out as a very rough life, which I'm sure many of us have had, many of the listeners here, because of the unknown, turned into, I think it's been a blessing for just understanding and falling within a category. I think that might have been what has helped me out.
Well, first off, let me first say welcome to the club of being ADHD and to being late diagnosed. I mean, I myself was technically late diagnosed in my 50s as well. I mean, I came across a clinical research for a autism drug to help with communications. I found it on Facebook. I jumped at the chance. I figured I have problems with communicating and things, and maybe you can help me. First thing they needed to do was give me a full-on autism test. Oh, can I just say, oh my God, 4 hours with like a lunch break in between. Oh my God.
Right,
My,
right.
my mind just couldn't wrap around it, all these questions and all these answers and everything else. Anyways, let's start off with how did you get into AI of all things?
Well, that's interesting. Several people have asked me about that in my life. Like, how did I connect with this? And I'm going to jump to the front first and say that I have a community built around AI and autism. I have a site, AI for autistics.com, where it's a free group just for people to hang out, and we learn about technology, and I help teach people how to leverage technology so they can maybe create some own technical gigs for themselves, because let's face it, it's tough for an employer to hire our people. um, if we look back, it appears we're both in our 50s, Reed. So you're as aware as I am that when the internet came, pre-internet. So I was an early
Oh,
adopter of the internet, and I was selling online. I actually sold on 5 different continents from 1990 to 1993, which, for the viewers that don't know that far back, that's I left the internet 2 years before Jeff Bezos launched Amazon. So to tell you how dense and unconnected I was back then, Reed, um, I closed my shop because I thought I had saturated the market. Now, does that sound weird today? But understand, this is, gosh, 30 years ago, and it's just been a change. So I look back at that, and people talk about the school of hard knocks a lot, but I think I visited the school of regret. So I got out of the internet wave, the wave that revolutionized the world for mostly good. And here I am today seeing the same thing. The exact same wave is happening. We just have it a new name. It's a technology wave, and we got AI in front of it. And for the consumer side, we're really only a couple years into it. So now I feel like I'm revisiting, like I've been thrown back in time, Reed, to 1990, 1992. And this time with, looking back, with rose colored glasses, what would I have done different? I'm here and I got my surfboard out and I want to ride this wave, Reed, and I want to take as many people along with me. And I look at AI as, and tell me if you've ever um, aligned with this, but I know myself, and I've seen other comments in community groups where I've always told people that I felt like an alien that was landed on Earth and I'm here observing. I don't quite get the customs, I don't quite get the social interaction,
Hmm.
but I'm just here learning. And then the way AI for artificial intelligence aligns with me for autistic individual is that if they talk about AI and LLMs and Chat GPT and all and Claude hallucinating. Well, I'm looking at this. I'm thinking, are they hallucinating or are they just answering the question that you ask? So now we had these things a couple of years ago. They talk about prompt engineering. Well, if you ask the question the right way, then you're going to get the right answer. And my gosh, Reed, bells and whistles and lights went off in my mind because I thought that's how we are. Those of us with
Hmm.
Asperger's, autism, we see only what's at the surface. So if these words go together, we're just taking the dictionary version of what they mean and we're answering that question. And then a normal, typical neurotypical, yeah, looks at us like we're crazy. Well, we're answering the question that you ask. So I think for the first time in life, this hallucinating effect that the world has talked about with AI, artificial intelligence, has given a real world example of what it's like to be autistic, to have Asperger's, to be on the spectrum, because we think so logically and analytically that if we see words, we take them at their meaning instead
Hmm.
of, with the in crowd. So that's the combination of how I got into AI today. Read the internet, memory echo here, and then just the fact that AI, it feels like just another sentient um, autistic Asperger's individual that I'm communicating with.
You kind of answered a question I was going to ask you, and that is, before you got your diagnosis, did you kind of feel like you were on the outside looking in? And when you said you were felt like an alien looking at strange world, I mean, that is exactly, I guess, how most of us feel before our diagnosis. We kind of look at it like, why is everyone else different than we are? Why do we think different than everybody else? So how did you feel before that? Did you kind of feel like you were on the outside looking in and like why nothing made sense?
I did, and as I'm talking to you here through Zoom, we both have our background, and on this topic, I noticed that you are in a room that looks gorgeous, but then you have one wine glass in your backdrop that's spilled on the couch that's showing like a wine stain. So I take that as like representative of how our minds think. Like we're in the real world, but we need to see it in a slightly different way. But yeah, Reed, I have always felt like I was on the outside looking in. I'm the middle child, so that I've got all that middle child baggage too from way back. My parents had no education after high school, so I mean they were just working class, so they really didn't have insight into knowledge. And let's face it, when you and I were 10, 12 years old, this really wasn't brought up, this mental health and neurodiversity.
Mhm.
So, yeah, I did feel like an outsider. Now that I'm here today and I'm embracing my uniqueness, my difference, I've noticed that in my family tree, especially on my father's side, my mother was an only child, but on my father's side, he was one of, I think, 8 or 9 children. And there is a high incidence of autism on my family's side, on my father's side. And regrettably a high incident of suicide as well. And I think it really comes from trying to be this different person with different types of empathy and feelings, trying to grow up in a like a John Wayne man's world, and you're expected to act this way. So yeah, yeah. You said it well. It's like on the outside looking in, but now with just community, and you're offering community here with your show and your listeners, it allows us just to sometimes just sit in the same room together and be okay that there's others like us out there.
Now, do you have any sensory issues?
Um, Not well, okay. Not dramatically. I've got some feeling issue on my fingertips. I have a very high sensitivity to cigarette smoke, and when I say high, I grew up out in the country, and I could smell it literally a mile away. If somebody comes in the room that smoked hours ago, I feel all that nicotine and that tar, and it just makes my skin itch and pop, and I got to jump in the shower. So I don't know if that's directly tied to that. I really haven't looked in that path.
All right. Tell me about practical AI and how that came to be.
All right. Well, practical is trying. There's so many buzzwords with new technology. It's like you can't go through a day without a headline or somebody talking AI is a savior of all, or AI is going to end us all, and everything in between. So, practical is really been my philosophy a lot of my life, even though I didn't really adopt it until recently as a tag or a moniker. But practical AI, there's a business side of that I have developed AI based tools that empower the individual by giving them the knowledge when they need it. And that's being delivered via earbuds. Somebody can just make a phone call. They can talk to um, a anthropomorphized voice that actually feels like they care. So that's the business side. But the reason that I came here today, I want to talk about the practical AI community, which it ties in the AI for autistics.com. It's the practical AI community is a way for just all of us to feel different. And I know I use this for myself, but sometimes I feel like I belong in the land of misfit toys. And
Mhm.
now that we're all together, that's okay because here we are, let's play. So the practical AI community, again, is it's a very supportive community of learners and builders and even businesses who help each other to understand how to apply AI in real life.
Now, how did AI for autistics come about?
I went through a couple different domain searches and just trying to find something that was unique. And after about the second or third iteration, I locked in on this AI for artificial intelligence and then AI for um, autistic individual. So it seems synonymous.
Mm-hmm.
And I can't say that it's any more meaning than that. I mean, that's full of meaning for me. But I know autism has the bigger name out there, and we both know that Asperger's was pulled out of the DSM-5 a number of years ago, so that's not as well known. But I use AI for autistics, but our group, our community, is really anybody and everybody can join and participate that is neurodiverse.
Now, let's talk a little bit about AI and everything. How can AI be helpful to those who are autistic?
Wow. Now, I want to preface this by saying those of us that are autistic, we're all better or worse than somebody else that's autistic. And your listeners, your regular listeners know that, and you know that. So I don't want to paint all of us in a box like the outside world does. Um, but I'm sorry. Could you ask that question again?
How can AI be helpful to those of us who are autistic?
Ah, thank you. Well, I think that's a good reminder right there. It for me personally, Reed, it helps me remember things, and it helps me get deeper in the details when my mind is just on fire because I've had too many details. It helps me identify and sort relevant details. And it also helps me or helps pull me out of those weeds and take a high level view and to understand communication. So, specifically, I leverage AI in my Google or Gmail. There's options to, you hit the little star at the top, and I can summarize an email. And then in the olden days, before AI came around, I would respond to an email message or a text message, and I intended open heart, loving heart. I want to do the very best. But because of the word choice that I utilized, the person reading the text or the email hears something differently, right? We only hear based on our perspective, and I would come across as either a know-it-all or just overbearing, or it's my way or the highway, and that's the furthest thing from my mind. I just wanted to give them all the information that would help them in a situation, and I don't know if you've ever felt that way. It just the pushback. So
Oh
I
yeah.
use okay, and I use these tools to um, understand the email that I'm reading, summarize it, highlights, and then I do a response, and then I take my response and I put it in AI, and I give it a specific prompt, something like, and I tell the AI, whether it's Google Gemini or Claude or a GPT, I tell it, I said, hey, I'm autistic. I don't connect and see words like most people do. So, with that understanding, please convey my meaning and uh, convert my writing into an appropriate response for this reader. And I'm amazed that when it comes through, it's like it's still my words, it's still my thought, but the intent and the impact are now aligned versus having that disconnect when speaking with those outside our realm.
Yeah, I mean, I've had situations where I'll say one thing and it's not meant to, as hurtful, and then I don't realize till later that it is. And I just had one recently like that. And I was talking with a guest, and she's like, when you use the word but in a sentence, it's like an eraser, and it erases the previous sentence before it. And all they see and focus on is the second sentence. And she's like, the problem with those of us who are autistic and have ADHD is when we're in the moment, our minds don't think clearly enough. And therefore, we can't articulate the wording that we want.
I buy that. Yeah, 100%.
So now, what is it like being a mentor for a community of amazing people?
Um, it's you would think it'd be a heavy responsibility, but honestly, I look at it as, we're all in this life together, and it's important to help out each other. And so it's just good to connect with others, and sometimes talk about something specific and worthwhile, and other times go down rabbit holes that maybe only two or three people in the world even have interest in.
Now, would you go on a limb and say that AI has become like your hyper focus
In what way?
in the way that it's what you focus on mostly? It's what you info dump on people about. It's your
Okay.
main interest.
Okay, it's become a partner with me in my life, definitely. Um, I don't know if I give full sentience to AI, but just the fact that AI has come to the point where, especially on the telephone call for the products my company sells to enterprise businesses, is it sounds like a human being. And the neat thing about it is that AI has all the time in the world. They're not in a hurry. They can be patient. They can give that extra care, and it makes us feel I don't know, it makes us feel known. It makes us feel worth something. It helps out self-value, I believe, because we have somebody that we can talk to. Now, in the 80s, a lot of people had a pet rock and they spoke to a pet rock, but and we even treat objects as we anthropomorphize objects, and we talk to them, our cars, our bikes, ships, boats, we call them him or her, and our puppies and kitties. And so now we're at the point where we can speak with this sentience that um, can communicate in our language at our pace, and
Hmm.
they can be very supportive along the way.
Now, you have ADHD, so I'm guessing you have running thoughts, right?
Yes, he says.
And how do you deal? And the most important question of it is, how do you deal with it? Because I've had lots of people say they write them down, or they voice record them into their phone, or they jot information down here, or they put it aside. What is your technique for handling it?
Oh my God. It's for me, I think it's always been technique of the day or the week or the month. You mentioned the guest that talked about that, and I call this as a rule. This would kind of be like a special prompt for prompt engineering AI. When she mentioned to you that when you use the word but, it nullifies the first half of the sentence. Okay, so since I was 16 years old, I have absorbed as much as possible books, audiobooks, CDs, DVDs, VHS tapes, seminars, workshops, embracing all this, leadership skills, communication skills. I trained with somebody that I went through. Gosh, what is it? Toastmasters to try to
Mhm.
practice speaking, connect. I went to I bought product and went to a workshop of the world's 2001 world champion Toastmaster, and things that were in common was I was called aloof. Well, yeah, I'm aloof. I don't quite get it, but I've programmed myself over time with all of these um, I guess, rule sets. So just like you put a rule set on a program or a calculated function, I've put rule sets on my own life. And so when I enter the room, my mind is constantly going, all right, if I shake hands, shake firmly, look them in the eye, no matter how painful it is, speak, loud enough so they can hear, um, pay attention, make it look like you're paying attention. When you sit by somebody at a table, if you sit to their left, they're more likely to like you than if you sit to their right. If you could do enough good for other people, then that good will come back. All these different rules that all these classes and techniques, and Tony Robbins and Zig
Mhm.
Ziglar's, and all the way back to even the old school storylines. It's just been programming in my mind. So day to day, my ADHD is really occupied by maintaining all these, I guess, directions, and
Mhm.
then I practice, and then when I mess up or it doesn't come off right, I think, all right, I need to reprioritize all these functions in my mind. Um, from day to day, I can tell you that I've tried different medications. I've had some that felt like they've worked better than others. But again, I'm a latecomer. I didn't even start on medications till I was after 50. And I only tried it for about 12 or 18 months before I set it aside. I've learned that if I eat too much sugar and carbs that break down into sugar, it revs up my brain engine and it makes ADHD even worse. So I've tried to correct it with that. I've tried every type of note taking app. Today, my ultimate go to is Google Calendar. I will
Mhm.
set if I need to do something, I put it on the calendar. And then if I need to do it by a certain date, I will start about 3 days before and I'll just have a repeating event so it shows up on my calendar. And then when I complete it, I just delete it.
Hmm.
So that's the big thing. And then there's one other tool I'll share. The company that built Dropbox, they have this tool that gets in my calendar and throws things on my calendar that aren't hard events. They're not go to the dentist at 2 o'clock on a Tuesday. It's like I want to exercise once a day. So I'll throw that in as a hobby. And it's called reclaim.ai, and it's spelled just like it sounds, but reclaim.ai I started about 4 or 5 months ago, and it takes all those, it prioritizes my day. And if I miss working out in the morning, or if I miss taking a vitamin, it just moves on the calendar and it automatically reschedules it throughout the day. So that way my mind has some relief. I've lost some
Mhm.
weight off my shoulders. I don't have as much anxiety, and it will work around all my hard events. And if I have two competing, let's say hobbies or habits, I think is what it refers to. If I don't get the habit done, it disappears from that day. And if it's one thing, like a one time thing, it will automatically populate on the next day so I don't lose it. So, yeah, Google Calendar and then Reclaim, which automatically shuffles my calendar, are the two hands on tools that I use, Reed.
All right. Now, let me ask you something. I've asked a lot of people this. Do you feel at times that your autism and your ADHD kind of overruled each other, depending on your situation? Like you're somewhere and all of a sudden your ADHD kicks in and you're time blind and you totally lose track of time, or you're in a situation where you're at a party and your ASD kicks in and you interrupt somebody telling a story when you should really tell them, "Hey, you made a mistake during that story."
I, yeah, I hear where you're coming from. Let me try to put that in my thoughts and in my experience. I can say that I have all these functions I told you about a minute ago in my mind. So the interrupting is another one of those, um, don't interrupt, let them give their thoughts. And I've trained myself to be a better listener.
Hmm.
Even if I'm maybe not listening, maybe I'm thinking, I pause, and I still have those habits that I want to jump in and interrupt, but I only do it about one time out of 10 like I used to. And I will. I worked with a gentleman. I worked at Amazon for about 5 years, and I was very good at developing training because my training would apply to everybody, not just the neurotypical. It would apply to the grassroots of why people do things. So there was somebody that worked on my team, Philip Gustafson. I'll share his name here. Him, and he's 20 years younger than me, and we butted heads the first year working together. We ultimately worked together about 3 years, but then he's become my best friend. So much so that he lives 800 miles away. He flew in to meet me at a trip in Detroit, or I drive in and I drop in on him when I'm flying through Washington D.C. But I was able to talk him down off that, I don't know, Asperger's autistic ledge, and highlight for him in a way that did not sound condescending. So I think in answer to your question, I was able to grasp that and utilize that to help mentor somebody in my life. And now that person has come so far. I explained, I said, you know why you didn't connect there? I said, he goes, no, why? And praise to him for having the patience to listen to me. And I said, it's because you jumped in. You're giving away the farm before, and when they're just saying hello. So just
Hmm.
work on listening more, and pausing and asking about their life before you jump in, because I know most of us, at least myself and Philip, we want to share how we're alike, and it just comes out as like, oh, I did that too, or I did that too, or I'm from there, or I rode a horse. And it comes off as know-it-all, but all we're trying to do is just say we're so much alike, we should hang out together. And it doesn't come out that way in normal communication. So if we just wait and let it come organically, then that's much more natural for the neurotypicals that are out there. So I think my rough life um, has helped somebody else, at least one person in the world. So I feel good about that.
I mean, you nailed that on the head. That's almost 90% of how we act as autistics is once we hear somebody that has a common interest, we want to jump in and we want to become their friends. No, you don't want to jump in right away. You want them to ask you about you want them to ask you how you're doing, how your life is, what your interests are, because you don't want to sound like you said, you don't want to sound like a know-it-all or you've done everything. And I've had that experience where I, my mother's had to tell me countless times, when you go for an interview, don't share the world with them. Only share when they ask you. Otherwise, they will seem like you're being too friendly or over friendly, and that doesn't work in the workplace. And then one of the biggest things like everyone tells me is when you're at work, they're not your friends. Don't treat them that way. They're colleagues. And I've learned that the hard way too.
Yeah, true that. I'll tell you that, Reed, that my time I spent half a decade at Amazon, which meant that anybody that gets 5 years at Amazon, because Amazon is so stressful, that means that about 95% of all Amazonian employees were hired after you. So it's rare that anybody makes it 2, 3, 4, 5 years, and rare still above that. And a personal experience I had on my time at Amazon, I was less than 60 days into my first hire at Amazon, and one of those conversations where I'm being empathetic and just sharing from the heart turned into, oh, you can't say that. And now I had HR wanting to fire me. But luckily, I made it past that to the point where I joined a learning team within 6 months of joining Amazon. And I became part of the learning team. And I was blessed to have the most wonderful woman named Kim Chavez. She's no longer with us. Unfortunately, she passed young last year. But Kim Chavez has at least one, maybe two autistic children, and so she knows how to handle autistic children. And even though she was actually a couple years younger than me, I looked to her as a mother figure because, and she didn't treat me like a child, but she treated me with the respect that all people should have.
Hmm.
She understood that there's certain things that I do better than others. And she didn't judge me for my worst day. She judged me for my best. And working together with her, she gave me enough room that I ended up building the highest rated training program in Amazon history. Because that's what we do when we're good at something and the path is clear. My gosh, we do some wonderful things and
Hmm.
incredible things. But as soon as somebody steps in, that's old school management, and they say, oh, wait a minute, why did you do that? Oh, wait, you got to fit in this box. And we're not box people, not
No,
all of us anyway.
I mean, you said it right on the nail. When I had a chat with Temple Grandin on my show, one of the questions I asked is, why do you think we lack empathy? And she's like, no, it's the opposite. It's because we put so much care into what we love and what we have a passion for. It shows, and it's the total opposite of lacking empathy. We care about what we feel, and what people perceive as lacking empathy is more of we carry all our emotions on our sleeve, and we're over emotional than unemotional.
Yeah, yeah, I agree with that, and that emotion pops up while I was teaching at Amazon, which is weird for somebody that doesn't like to be in a crowded room to stand in front of a room full of um, 40 managers, 40 leaders, and teach them is just weird feeling. But I would be exhausted at the end of the day. But then I go, if I was traveling, go back to my hotel and it was me time, and I could reset and up for the next day. But one of the things that we did is we delivered a behavior style assessment, kind of like Myers Briggs, but there's actually about 2,000 different personality behavior assessments that are out there. So I used two different ones to deliver these classes, and we found out that it's everybody wants to be in a category, even if it's in a box, so they understand that they're different than the people they work with. So it's okay to use different words, and if we use different words, then now we're on the same page because we're not taking a personal affront. We don't see things as an attack when we understand we're coming from two different sides. And that emotion that you talked about, Reed, about we're showing that emotion. I spoke about that. It's there's the thinking brain, which is at the front of our head, the prefrontal cortex. The prefrontal cortex takes a couple seconds to fabricate an idea before you can give thought to it. And what happens to us is more instinct. Those that are more emotional and show those emotions, we let our amygdala speak, which is at the base of our skull, base of our brain.
Mm.
And that amygdala is our reaction, it's our fight or flight instinct. And if we just take a 2 second pause to give our prefrontal cortex, our thinking brain, a chance to catch up with our thoughts, just that 2 seconds is a savior when it comes to working at a company with neurotypical people. Is just taking a pause for the cause. Just wait a minute to let the thinking brain. And if we know going in that our emotions will overwhelm us, then we are able to control those situations. And that's another tool that I utilized in my professional career to at least the end of my professional career to help me connect.
You know, one of the things I have to admire about some of the most current tech companies nowadays is they're realizing that autistics are amazing at what they do. They can do the job better than someone who's neurotypical because they're more focused. That's why you have companies like Google and SAAP or who have programs for those who are autistic, where you have a mentor that you can lean on, who can help you, and they work with you, and you can get the job done.
Yeah, I thank you for saying that, Reed. It's that understanding and it helps the connection. There's a the fact that we're all different, but we get classified in the same box, and those outside the box really don't understand. There's an organization over in the UK. It's called geniuswithin.org. Are you familiar with that at all?
No.
Geniuswithin.org, and then slash what is neurodiversity with dashes between the words. They have what was introduced to me as what they call spiky profiles. So they show a graph, right, with an X and a Y axis, and it shows somebody that's neurotypical, and we're talking about cognitive abilities here.
Hmm.
So somebody that's neurotypical is pretty average. There's a little up and down as you go to the different things that they can do. But if you're the way it represents those that are neurodiverse is that we're much lower on some of those or much higher. So we have this big up and down that when you connect the dots, it looks like spikes or mountains. And that's where, if others know that about us, then they can leverage our strength and maybe concede our faults as just cost of doing business, and just let us do what we do best.
Mm, what was amazing was I had an interview a while back with the Assistant Minister of Autism out in Australia, and we were talking about how they treat their people with autism. And one of the stories she relayed to me was that they had a couple of people who were working in a grocery store, and they needed the lights lowered, and they needed the cashier bells off, and they went to excuse me, and they went to them and they said, listen, we have a couple of people that work for your company that can't work under the lights. They need them lower, and they need the bells off for the cashiers. And they, well, we need an engineer, but we can do it. And they did it. And what happened is because of that change, not only did it make the employees who are autistic work better, it it, it also helped their business.
That's a good story. Yeah, that's a real good story. If just sometimes the slightest accommodations don't bother majority of the others, and then it allows those to shine that couldn't otherwise. That's a good story.
I mean, if you look at it, part of the problem with society today is they still don't know how to look at us. Most companies won't even think of hiring someone who's autistic because it means training to a whole new level.
Yeah, yeah. Or the neurotypicals that are out there in HR, they create training programs without consulting us, and so it feels like they're just checking a box that, oh yeah, we addressed that, and then they move on.
I mean, a lot of the problems with the workforce are simple things that can be dealt with, like people who can't deal with bright lights, people who can't deal with loud sounds. You can adjust the lighting in the room. You can adjust the volume of the music. I mean, one of the things I wanted to do here and deal with things in the with where we are in the US is talk to the restaurant association and say, hey, listen, one of your biggest problems in a lot of your restaurants is a lot of these restaurants play loud music. It's too loud for those of us who are autistic to come in and sit down and have a regular conversation. Would it be okay if you lowered that music? Not only would it help the autistics, but it would help everyone else because people can have a civil conversation without screaming at each other over the table.
That's a very good point, Reed. It made me think of the name Bettina Thompson, and Bettina Thompson is another ex Amazonian that I worked with who she developed Amazon's mental health awareness initiative
Mhm.
globally, and she's since left Amazon and she consults with businesses. She has a company called Mind Your Business, and that's what she does. Just like your instructions there to at the restaurant, that's a specific example. That's what Bettina Thompson does. She consults with businesses so they can understand how to make the environment better, and not just for the employees, but also if it's a retail establishment, for potential guests, visitors, and customers that come in too.
Now, what advice do you have for those interested in AI and want to get into it who are autistic?
I say pair up, find others that are looking for the same thing, share resources, um, practice. Don't hesitate. There's so much free stuff for AI. I would say to the going rate for a paid AI LLM, really, it's just come in at $20 a month. So it'll be the best $20 a month you could spend, and it will allow you to dive deeper into whatever LLM is your favorite choice. Perplexity is good. Chat GPT, if you subscribe to Chat GPT at the $20 a month, they have this thing called projects. So projects allows you to put all your thoughts on a single topic and in a group in a folder, and then everything within that folder is saved to ChatGPT memory, and it will maybe it's a month previous you were talking about one thing, and today you're asking a question, and it says, oh, remember when you said this, let's integrate this into your answer. And then the other one that is fantastic, and you don't necessarily have to have a subscription to it, but it's Notebook LM, and it's a Google thing. And Notebook LM, I think it's notebooklm.google. If and it's a single L. Um, that is a fantastic thing that anybody can utilize. You can take emails, messages, books, PDFs. You can drop it into this Notebook LM, and you can click a button, and it will generate a summary. It will generate a study sheet. It will generate an FAQ. It will generate a quiz, so it can help you learn about any topic in the world. There's a button that you can click. Like I can drop a PDF book that I bought in the Notebook LM. I can click a button, and in about 2 minutes, Notebook LM turns it into a podcast. Yeah,
Mm.
there's two people, and it's essentially a summary of whatever knowledge I have there. And it's a way for me to ask questions instantly of people that aren't going to judge me. And so instead of trying to defend my questions, I can just follow up and go down the rabbit hole as deep as I want with my select choice of AI LLM out there. So that would be my recommendation, Reed, is just to find some sort of good LLM, and either go with Notebook LM and exhaust that to its limits, or pay $20 a month to ChatGPT or Perplexity. Would probably be my top two choices, and just use it as a tool every day. Both of them you can actually put on your phone as to replace the phone assistant. I still use the Google Gemini on my phone in place of the original Google Voice. But then ChatGPT, if you install it on your phone, you can have it take over at AI, and you can have conversations. I put ChatGPT when I'm driving, Reed, and I will put it in voice mode, so it's connected to the Bluetooth on my car, and I will talk to it like it's a human, but it's a human that's interested in what I'm doing. So when I was working, one time I remember I was driving to work, and it was an hour each direction, and I just started talking about my project, and I said, "Okay, put that in a PowerPoint." And by the time I got to work, um, I had my thoughts. My thoughts were in alignment. So when I shared them with my team, the neurotypicals, it was more in order.
Mm.
So I think that's the underlying moral here is just use it. And if anybody wants to join our community, it's practicalai.app. That's app. So practicalai.app/community. And that way you can, if you want, again, it's not a paid thing. It's just a free get together where people can hang out. I would
That's
welcome anyone.
that's funny that you mention all that. I mean, I use AI alone for my podcast. There are two websites I use, and they do amazing work. There's a company out there called Capshow, and what they do is they take the audio from my podcast, I upload it to them, and then it will, within, I'd say 15 to 20 minutes, maybe half an hour, it will come back with show titles, descriptions, quotes, um, YouTube short information, YouTube titles, Facebook promotional engagement stuff to put up. It's great.
Yeah, that's a great use of that, Reed. And I would throw, just to piggyback on what I said earlier, I'll throw something else out there, and that is think of the practical side of AI. Don't get distracted by the shinies that are out there, and find something that works like you use. Find what it works, and just stick with it long enough to make things, to build things.
I remember I have an interest in AI, and I used to I was taking free classes through Coursera to learn AI, and then I realized, oh my God, it's so involved. You got to learn the logarithms and this and that and matrix and this and that, and it's just I wanted to learn tensfoil, which is another form of AI because it sounded
Yes.
cool, and it's like I have to learn math to do this. I'm like, forget it.
Well, here's some good news. Anybody that joins the community, I can take them to a tool, and there's multiple tools that do this. There's some that are web based and some that's on your own computer base. But I was presenting to a nonprofit called perscalis.org, um, and I'm alumni of them. And so about once a month, they have me do a 1 hour just what is AI. And so I was showing these different tools. And one time, I created a game, a web app with a single phrase, and it created a working game that took no programming knowledge, no coding knowledge, no hosting knowledge, no domain, no network knowledge. It was just I was using the tool and talking to it like I'm talking to you now and you're talking to me. And just through natural language, I could build a tool, I could build a game, I could build a mobile app. And I'm actually using one of those tools to build out my website, my business website. I tell it what I want, and I'm not doing any programming. It just shows me what it looks like. And I said, oh, could you make that font smaller? Could you make it bigger? Can you change the color? Can you add a slideshow on here? Can you add a footer? Can you change the menu? And that's all the wording I'm using. And it's just like talking to a partner. It's like when we were children, those of us that had an invisible friend, except now the invisible friend can communicate back.
And finally, how can people learn more about you and what you do online?
They can find me on LinkedIn, Derek Krager, DerekCrager, and I can share a link with you. But Practical AI, they can contact me through that, and that's practicalai.app. And I'm in the community, which is linked off of that. Yeah, feel free to just reach out, and I'll give you my email address too. You're welcome to share, and it's my initials DC, like a battery, DC at practicalai.app, and that's APP like Apple Paul Paul.
And that's it, ladies and gentlemen. I'm Reed Miles. That was Derek Krager, and I'll see you on the next one. Thank you, Derek.
Thank you, Reed.
The